my very deep honor to introduce our speaker this morning, Bill Campbell.
McDonald.
Oh, my God, sorry. Bill McDonald. Sorry about that. Thanks for correcting me on that.
An Irishman looks like another.
All right. Bill is a minister, author, poet, yoga meditation instructor, mystic, international motivational speaker, energy healing teacher, a veteran advocate and Purple Heart veteran, 3-time near-death experiencer, and film consultant. So that's a lot. I could stop right there, but I want to share with you more about Bill. Bill has written 12 books, 3 in German, 1 in Spanish, the rest in English. He has over 3 million plus views of his interviews and talks on YouTube, and also talks given on podcasts by other people who have interviewed Bill. And I was so impressed, Bill, that your record as a veteran. Bill was in Vietnam, and he was involved in heavy combat, and it was a miracle that you survived. Bill had 3 near-death experiences during those probably tours of duty in Vietnam, and he wrote a book called Warrior: A Spiritual Odyssey, which I notice is available for us for sale today. In the back there, if you'd like to check that book out. I'm a Vietnam veteran myself, so I'm aware of what awards mean. Well, this man not only got the Purple Heart, which you only receive if you're wounded in combat. He earned the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Bronze Star, 14 Air Medals, and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. Now, these awards are only given for extraordinary valor in battle. And so this man, if he had done nothing else in his life but worked there, that would have been enough, but that was just the beginning. I suspect that your experiences in Vietnam really made you who you are. You really had, I believe, a spiritual breakthrough. Bill has spent the rest of his life now serving others, which is the highest work I think any of us can do. So without further ado, let's welcome Bill. What's your name? Bill McDonald.
In case you wonder what I'm doing, I do this at every audience I go to. I want to see who I'm talking to. The eyes are the windows of your soul, so if you don't want me to look, close the shades. Yes, I was in Vietnam, and as crazy as that war was in those times, for a lot of people it was a nightmare, and I've been helping veterans for 50 years. But it was also a place of spiritual abundance, miracles. And since I wasn't going to talk about Vietnam, but since the subject came up, since you asked, several things came up. In relationship to my near-death experience when I was 8.5 years old, which I talked about yesterday to a group, part of that was having a vision of the future, which I saw forward 50 years of my life. And one of the events I saw, of many, was myself sitting behind a machine gun on a Huey helicopter. And I saw the circumstances, and I knew when I saw that scene with me sitting behind that helicopter that this was something that was going to happen in my life, and it was going to change not my life, but the lives of hundreds of people in this nation. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm going to tell you the story. You can't stop an Irishman once he gets going. You're going to hear it. So, I'm a crew chief door gunner on a Huey helicopter. And we're flying over the border of Cambodia and Vietnam, and the Ho Chi Minh trails are running through there. And it was an area where there was a lot of enemies. You couldn't tell the good guys from the bad guys, to be honest. That's what part of this story is about. I had an officer. He was a pilot. He was a major. And he'd just come from 3 years of duty from Germany, and before that he was stationed at West Point. No combat experience. Gets in the helicopter, he's telling me what to do. I've been there a while. We're flying and we look down and we see what looks like to him like a formation of troops in black pajamas with guns and stuff on their shoulders marching down this little trail from this hamlet. And he assumed they were the enemy. And he gives me a direct order. McDonald, not Campbell, McDonald. He says, get your machine gun, fire on these people. There was 30-something people plus a leader, all in black. And then I remembered my visions. I remembered back in 1954, whatever it was, years before, this is 1967. Deja vu. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm the guy sitting in this seat. Because what happens next could have changed the United States and Vietnam history, just like My Lai. If those that are too young to remember My Lai, we massacred 100 and some people in a village. It was really terrible. The only person that stopped it was a helicopter pilot and his crew chief who stopped him. But that was actually happening just months after this. This would have been a worldwide thing. So I look down at these troops, I'm given a direct order, and I'm told it's a direct order. Take my machine gun, which fires 750 rounds a minute, 7.26-inch millimeter rounds, NATO rounds. And I would have decimated these people in a matter of a minute. And I tell the officer, no, sir. I refuse the order. That's not what you think it is. Now realize this is in combat, and your commander is giving you an order to fire. Refusing a direct order in combat, I'm going to go to jail for at least 20 years. But then it gets worse. I refuse, and he threatens me with a court-martial. In fact, guarantees when we get back, I'm going in jail. I said, great, go do whatever you're going to do. But the gunner sitting on the other side of the helicopter, who didn't have the knowledge I did, the wisdom, the intuition, whatever you want to call it, said, I've been flying with McDonald for 6 months, and he's been right about everything. He knows who's going to get shot, who's going to get killed, who's going to get shot down. And I did. And he trusted me, and he says, I refuse to fire too. And then the major goes, realize that 2 or more soldiers that refuse a direct order in combat, that's mutiny, and that's life in jail or a firing squad. Which means if he would have went through with this, you wouldn't be hearing me now. I would still be in Fort Leonard Wood if I wasn't executed. It's interesting in the military that disobeying an order is the worst thing you can do. If I killed a fellow soldier, that was 7 years in jail. But if I refused an order to kill people, it could have been a death sentence. All right. So finally, after we're getting threatened with these court-martial, and me and my buddy, we're going, no, we're not going. We refuse. And then I suggest to him, why don't you fly down? If it's bad guys, they will shoot at us. Right? In my world, bad guys don't march in a formation. A helicopter flies over and they don't run. That's usually how we told the bad guys from the good guys. The good guys march, the bad guys run, right? So we swoop down about 100 feet over them, and it turns out to be a Catholic priest in a black robe leading about 35 children in black pajamas to the community food garden, vegetable garden. And they were carrying on their shoulders shovels, hoes, rakes. Had we not followed those orders, or had we followed those orders, we would have killed 35, 36 people. But not only that, all the relatives of those people on the ground, they would have hated us. And the world would have hated us. And we would have hated us. And this officer gave the order. I could have been a smart pants and said, I'm just following orders. Does that sound familiar? Just following orders. That's what the Nazis told us at the trials. And what did we do, Mr. America? We go, you have to make decisions. You got to be righteous. You can't just follow orders. You got to question them. And yet, if you do question them in the United States Army, you're going to jail. And we're the people that came up with this, you can't follow direct orders. Had I pulled the trigger and killed those children, that would have been world headlines. World. So in the infinite wisdom of the universe, this situation coming up was foreseen 20 years before, you know, and I was the right person to be in that, I was the right person to be there. It just happened to be, it was me that was there. If somebody else had been there, things would change. And I say this because I'm telling people, listen to that inner voice. Listen. I'm going to tell you another strange tale since we're on this. I'm in Vietnam and we're flying and we got 500 North Vietnamese uniformed troops on the ground and they're engaged with about 150 South Vietnamese soldiers. They're outnumbered. They just shot down 9 of our helicopters that were flying overhead. They got wounded, they damaged, they all left. And we were the last helicopter in the sky. The gunships left. And we had the commanders for the ground troops down there, so we had to land. And we had orders, right, just the opposite now. We had orders, do not fire at anything because there's friendlies on the ground, right? There's hand-to-hand and everything. So we're getting shot by 500 guys coming in. We got holes all over the helicopter. There's oil, there's hydraulic fluid, there's gasoline, there's every fluid in the world leaking. We drop down, we get down. One of the South Vietnamese officers turns out to be a double agent. He's actually on both sides. And when he gets off the helicopter, when nobody looks like they're looking at him, he turns around and he opens up with an automatic weapon on me. And I turn around, and all I see is light, like spotlight coming at me. And in slow motion, he knocks off 18 rounds. And it hits me in the chest, right in the heart. Now here's the good news. Before that week started, I was wearing a flak vest, which wouldn't stop any bullets or anything. They were looking for volunteers to try out a new ceramic chest protector. And nobody wanted it because it was 20 pounds in the front, 20 pounds in the back. And I go, I'm given an opportunity for something. I've been 6 months without any protection. I better listen. I think I'll take a chance on that. So me and my gunner, the guy that stood by me, I talked him into it. No, we're both going to have one. So 20 rounds or 18 rounds fired. I got a big explosion in my heart. Smoke and fire is coming out of my chest. Feels like a mule kicked me. I'm out of breath. And it's all in slow motion. That happened in just, like that. And yet it felt like 3-4 minutes was going by. Everything was, believe it or not, because I've crashed, 5 times over in Vietnam. I got shot down. Every time was in slow-mo, just like you see in the movies. When you're crashing through trees, it's all in slow motion. There's a part of you, the higher self, that kind of takes over and you just do your thing. But here's what the mystery is. So we got bullet holes everywhere. A gunner on the other side has got 17 rounds in his back because he took the back plate out to sit on it. And on my side of the helicopter, there's no entry wounds or entry holes anywhere of those rounds going through the other side. On his side, there's 17 holes exactly the shadow of my body on the other side. So the guys fired at me. 17 rounds go through the wall of the helicopter, but only exiting and never entering. And I got one symbolic one sitting in my heart, was fire coming out. Apparently it was a tracer. And so we make an unexpected stop in this big field, and you might call it a crash. We just say it's an unexpected landing. And I get the pilots out, and I get the fire extinguisher, and I'm doing all this stuff. And then I notice my gunner, he's leaning over, and there's blood everywhere. And so I put him on my shoulders, and I wasn't much taller than I am now, but probably 40, 50 pounds less than I am now. And I put him on my shoulders, and a full gallop, run 100 yards. to catch this little helicopter coming in, and I put him in to get evacuated. And then the major, another major, CO, jumps on the helicopter and says, "We got no more room." He left me and this black pilot. That was my pilot. And I was on the ground that day, and I took on 500 North Vietnamese like a crazy guy. To be honest with you, what happened was they were attacking me. I had 500 guys against me and a guy with a pistol. And I got the machine gun off the helicopter and put a couple thousand rounds over my shoulder, and I said, well, I'm going to give them a fight. And I walked to them. I attacked them, fired off 1,200 rounds before the barrel actually melted. And then once it melted and the gun was ruined, I kind of wanted to say, "I was only kidding. Sorry, Kimosabi." 8 hours later of running, hiding, playing games with these bad guys chasing me, they finally come to get us. The major finally decided, well, we'll send somebody to get you. They're still alive, we better send somebody. They basically wrote us off. When we got back to the base camp, and then they took a big Chinook, we were just talking about Chinooks earlier, took a Chinook helicopter and lifted up this Huey and brought it back. And everybody was looking at it because they're going, 17 exit holes, but no entry holes? And then they looked at my chest protector, and the U.S. Army confiscated it and took it, and within the next day I had the CIA and I had other investigators there trying to figure out what in the hell happened and how come I wasn't killed and everything else. And then they started investigating me as well for the fact that I'd been predicting correctly everybody that got killed in the company, every helicopter that got shot down, everybody that got wounded, and they want to know who I was and what I was doing. And at the time, I thought I was in trouble. But it wasn't until, that was 1967, it wasn't until 2003 or 4 when I got a call from Langley. You guys know where that's at? All right. The CIA had a file on me. Not only had they investigated, apparently they were trying to recruit me. There was this guy wouldn't tell me exactly what it was, but he says, we affectionately joke at it, we call it the Jedi program. One aspect of that turns out to be these guys that were at Stanford research doing those remote viewings. But I'm not into that. I didn't open myself up to any recruiting at all. I'm done with that. But the point of telling those two stories is this. You have to listen to that inner voice. Your higher self knows what's going on. You may not have anything that's that dramatic happening to you. But I'll give you an example of something less dramatic, but still listen to my voice. I work for the post office. I keep having this reoccurring dream every night with this biblical passage, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Be aware of strangers because they may be an angel, right? Something similar to that. You probably heard it before. In other words, treat strangers well. They might be an angel. And I kept seeing it, and I'd go to the dentist's office, and there's on a magazine, they got that quote, and then I'd pick up a book, and there's that quote, and then somebody's talking about it, and I'm going. So I knew I was going to be used, and somebody was waiting for me. That's all I knew. After 4 days, I'm at work. In the middle of the workday, I just get up, and I just tell, I'm going home. Nobody asked me why. Didn't fill out a leave slip, sick, nothing. I just left. I knew I had to get out of the building. I knew I had to get in my truck. I knew I had to drive down Highway 99, California from Sacramento. Somebody was waiting for me. Somebody was waiting for me. I knew it in the rain. And when I get down the highway, I see this, what turns out to be a 22-year-old young man, former foster child, who got aged out, had no place to go, went to his grandmother's, and then she died, and he had no place to go, and he was trying to hitchhike to Texas to see his stepdad. No money, no clothing, no tent, no sleeping bag, nothing. I see him there, he's all wet, on the side of the highway. I'm only going 5 miles. But I go, no, I'm going with his heart. There's something, I'm not going to give him a ride to Texas, but I got to do something for him. So I take him to my house, and I come inside, and he smells. He's been hitchhiking a couple weeks on the road. I said, here's a shower, give me your clothes, I'll have them washed. And what I did, I threw them away. They're really terrible. And I went to my own wardrobe, happened to be my size, and I gave him a backpack, filled it up with food, filled it up with clothing, gave him a sleeping bag, gave him a half-shelter tent, gave him a flashlight, gave him everything you could think of to survive. This guy definitely wasn't going to survive. And so when he got out, and I gave him all the new clothing and everything, and we sat down, and I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for him. That's all I had laying around. And he's staring at me the whole time. He's staring at me like, okay, what's up, right? So then he tells me, he says, last night in the rain, he was camped alongside the road there in a sleeping bag, and the rain came down, and he had no shelter, and the bag got soaked and ruined, if you ever had a bag that get ruined in the rain. And he was so miserable and cold, and he didn't use the exact word suicide, but he said he wanted to leave it all behind, that he was worthless, there was nothing for him, and he wasn't loved. No family, no nothing. And he says, and there I was. And then this guy comes to me, dressed exactly like you, and he says, and I stopped him, Jesus loves you. And he goes, and he breaks out and starts crying. Because he says, well, in the real life dream, that's exactly what that man said that looked like me. And then I looked at him and I said, there's one more thing. He looked at me. I said, the man gave you something. He goes, yes. And everybody's got a kitchen drawer where they put coupons and garbage in. Okay. I go to that drawer, and there's a pack, half a pack of sugarless gum. It's not even a full pack. I take it out and I put it in my hands and I say, when I give you this, and I put it in your hands, you'll know that everything that happened to you last night was not a dream. It was real. God loves you. And my wife's looking like, she saw what I pulled out, like, you're going to give me half a bag of used gum? That's supposed to be some sacred gesture, so my wife and, anyway. So I reach out and I put it in his hands, and he just has total breakdown because he said, that's exactly what the man gave him in his dream. Exactly what the man gave him in his dream. Not even close. That's exactly. I finished up with this young man. He left my house, got him back on the highway. But he's never left my prayer list. This happened around 1990. So that's 35 years ago. And I've been praying for that man. He was 22 then, so now 35 years on to that was 57. Never knew what happened to him, but he's still embedded in my heart. That's because I listened to that inner voice. How much time do I got? Okay. I told this story, which is not hardcore, but to the group yesterday, and for the people that weren't there, I think it's worth telling again because I enjoy telling it. Last weekend I was in Portland, Oregon area, and this woman says, what's it going to take to get you up here to talk to a group up here? And I said, well, just somebody get me a building and, do a little advertising. Oh, I could do that. Well, she got a building, she got a beautiful place, and then advertise nothing. No posters, nothing online. It was at the library. The library didn't even know. Nobody knew. So she tells me this just before I get in the car to drive up there. I'm driving on the road at 4 o'clock in the morning from below Sacramento heading north. It's an 11-hour drive. And so I'm having second thoughts. I mean, she's asking me, probably nobody's going to be there. Should I really go? But see, in my heart, I knew there was a reason I had to go there. I knew there was somebody there waiting for me, and I had to go. And it made no sense to me. I'm going. So here's what shows you I'm human. I'm driving down the road before you get to a town called, just before Redding, there's a town called Anderson. And I know there's this exit there, because I'd used it before, called, real name, Balls Ferry Exit. I can't make that up. So I'm saying, okay, if I don't get a sign, God, give me a sign, or I'm turning around when I get to that road, and I'm driving 3 hours back home. I ain't going to, spend the rest of the time driving there. Give me a sign. And then I look out the window in seconds, there's this huge billboard, like a real billboard, like the big ones. And it says on this sign, you know what it says? This is a sign. And I'm going, oh, come on, God, nah, that's too easy. No. So I'm still going to make the exit. And then about 150 feet or so later, there's a second sign. And what does this sign say? This says, this is another sign. And I'm going, what? In my heart, I'm saying, I should have asked for a bald eagle. Something real, right? Show me a bald eagle. And I said, okay, so I went. So I show up at this event. I show up early. It's in this library, and about 200 feet, literally 200 feet away, there's a parking lot, and they got a farmer's market. And there's all kinds of stuff going on. I'm there, and I'm sitting listening to a concert from a little band, and this guy sits next to me in a plastic chair, and he falls down, and I pick him up, and then he looks at me, and then he just starts talking. In 3 minutes, maybe less, he tells me he's got stage 4 cancer. It's metabolized all over his body, the brain, everywhere. His daughter died, and he's looking forward to going to heaven to see her. He's going to die in 2 or 3 months, maybe 4. He lost his job. His wife left him. His family is down in California. I go, where? Right off Balls Ferry Road. So I tell him the story, right? And before I could get to the second sign, he goes, and the second sign says another sign, right? And I go, because I thought I was dreaming it all. I thought, I've really flipped out. God just flipped that over. Other people are looking at a car ad or something, but it was really a real thing, right? And I go, wow, so what's the odds of this guy sitting next to me at this thing where I'm going to do the event, and he really needs help, and he's been crying out, and he says he goes to this marketplace every weekend, and he talks to people. Oh, okay, great. And then everybody's looking up, and I look up, and guess what's right over our heads? 20 feet above, a bald eagle. And I'm going, okay, that was a sign. But realize this, there's a lot of people out there that ask God for help, but then they don't want it. I'm asking, I got a free event here, free healing. I've come all the way here. There's going to be nobody there. I can give you personal attention. This is, where's that? I go, right there. When is that? Next hour. Well, yeah, maybe. I'll see if I can make it. He's sitting there. And so I walk away, I'm checking my phone messages, and the couple that's sitting next to me, he talks to them. And within 3 minutes, he's told them his whole life story. Lost his job, he's dying, his daughter died. And apparently he goes to the marketplace and tells everybody his problems every week. Sad, but true. But he just wants somebody to listen. And so it gets even crazier. So he didn't show up, obviously, but 4 people do. And then a 5th comes in just a couple minutes later, and this guy sits next to this woman. And it turns out he drove down from Seattle, Washington, which is 4 or 5 hours away. And they look at each other, this man and woman, and it turns out they're first cousins, and they only met once in their life. and neither one knew they were coming there. Obviously, nobody in Oregon knew I was going to be there. And so they had a little reunion, and it turns out that two told me they had stage 4 cancer. I think a 3rd might have had it. But they were all at that level. They were looking for help and guidance. And I only had one row of people in front of me. And that was the best healing event that I've ever done because they were right there, heart and soul, and they wanted it. The guy out there in the park, he was just happy to see his daughter in heaven. So, as I close, my advice is this. If you ask God for a sign, make it specific. Don't just ask for a sign or you're going to get a sign. So I wanted to wish for and ask for a bald eagle. So not only did I get my sign and then twice, but the divine has a sense of humor and also gave me my bald eagle. So I hope each one of you sees your bird of paradise flying over you today. Blessings and peace, and thank you for having me.